It was on a quiet Tuesday night at exactly 9:14 p.m. when Mary's peaceful world shifted. She sat in her old armchair, the wool blanket warm across her thin legs, when her phone buzzed with a message she wasn't meant to see. She opened it slowly, thinking it was another reminder from the doctor. Instead, she read, "When will that old hag finally die? I'm tired of tiptoeing around her." She stared at the words, calm, almost frozen, and whispered, "So that's how you see me, Anna?" Her voice did not shake. Her hands did not tremble. At 80, she had learned how to hold truth without letting it break her. Mary closed the phone gently, as if folding a letter she had expected long ago. She listened to the house settle around her, the same way it had settled when her husband David still walked its halls. Down the hallway, she heard dishes clattering. She imagined Anna's tight, impatient look as she complained under her breath. "She's asleep anyway," Anna muttered to her husband, Mark. "She doesn't even notice things anymore." Mary whispered softly, "I notice more than you think." But she stayed seated, letting the quiet fill the room like an old friend returning. She rose slowly, her joints stiff but determined, and touched the oak banister David polished every spring. "You would have said something sooner," she murmured to the empty hallway. She walked past the marks where Anna's height had been recorded since childhood. 6 years old, 10 years old, and 24 when you stopped needing me, she whispered. In the kitchen, the scent of lemon detergent lingered as she poured a glass of water. She stood by the window, watching the porch light shine over the yard that once glowed with Anna's laughter, and said quietly, "Maybe I stayed too long." Memories drifted in like soft shadows. She remembered when Anna insisted she and Mark move in after David died. "It's not safe for you alone, Mom," Anna had said sweetly, squeezing her hand. But it wasn't Mary moving into their home. It was them moving into hers. Boxes and furniture filled the rooms, pushing her things toward corners. Mark began calling her Mrs. Lane instead of Mom. Anna sighed whenever Mary entered a room. "She's always there," Anna once told a friend. Mary had stood behind the door listening and touched her arm gently to remind herself she was still solid. Over the years, small wounds piled up like dust on forgotten shelves. Anna stopped inviting her to dinners, saying, "Mom, those places are too loud for you." Mark whispered complaints about bills Mary didn't cause. Estate planning brochures appeared on the table, highlighted sections about transferring property early. "It's better for the future," Anna insisted. One evening, after hearing Anna laugh on the phone about being trapped with an old woman, Mary whispered to the empty hallway, "You stopped seeing me the moment I became inconvenient." But she kept her silence, the way mothers often do, hoping love would return someday. That Tuesday night, Mary sat at the kitchen table with the phone in front of her, untouched. The message glowed in her mind like a cold flame. She whispered, "I gave you everything, Anna. How did we end up here?" The house, once filled with David's laughter, now felt like a stranger wearing his clothes. Mary folded her hands and said softly, "Tomorrow. I will think clearly tomorrow." She remembered David's favorite words, "We decide in the morning." So she breathed deeply, let the hurt settle, and allowed truth, not anger, to guide her into sleep. Morning came quietly, carrying the faint blue light of winter. Mary rose from bed with slow determination and chose a soft gray cardigan David always admired. As she walked into the hallway, she noticed how small her world had become, a guest room she never chose, a kitchen she tiptoed through, conversations she was excluded from. She sat at the table with a cup of tea when Anna entered, rubbing her eyes. "Mom, you're awake early," Anna said carelessly. Mary looked at her and answered, "I had things to do." Anna frowned. "You could have left a note." Mary whispered, "I didn't know I needed permission." When Mark walked in, adjusting his glasses, he asked, "Is everything all right, Mary?" The polite tone felt heavier than insult. Mary answered calmly, "Everything is as it should be." Neither of them sensed the shift in her voice. They moved around the kitchen as if she were invisible. "Mom, the lights flickered again last night," Anna complained. "Did you press something wrong?" Mary looked up slowly. "No, Anna. I pressed nothing." Inside her chest, clarity settled like firm ground beneath her feet. She finished her tea, stood up and whispered, "Today I choose myself." Mary went to the small drawer where she kept all important papers. She placed the house deed, her will, and the power of attorney documents into her tote bag. "You've signed enough things without thinking," she told herself. Today you will think. She slipped on her coat and walked outside into the crisp morning air. The old blue car David bought years ago started on the first try. Good boy, she whispered, patting the dashboard. She drove past the church, the bakery, and the flower shop, places where people still greeted her by name, and headed straight to the small law office she had trusted for decades. At exactly 9 a.m., the office lights flicked on. Mary stepped inside, greeting the receptionist with a warm nod. When Mr. Dalton appeared, his voice softened. "Mary, it's been too long." She sat across from him and placed the documents on his desk. "I need changes," she said steadily. "My will, the power of attorney, and the protection of my home." He asked no unnecessary questions. He simply said, "All right, let's begin." As he typed, Mary felt something loosen inside her, a knot she'd carried for over a decade. "For the first time in years," she whispered, "David, I'm finally taking my life back." Mr. Dalton worked through each document with calm, steady hands. "The power of attorney will be revoked today," he explained. "Your daughter will no longer control anything." Mary nodded without hesitation. "Good," she said. "That chapter is finished." Then he opened her house deed. "What do you want done with this, Mary?" She answered softly, "Protect it. No one else makes decisions about my home except me." He studied her face for a long moment and finally said, "You've carried a lot alone." Mary replied, "I carried love, Robert. But I will not carry disrespect." They moved on to the will. "Who do you want as the next beneficiary of your estate?" he asked gently. Mary thought of Anna's cold eyes and Mark's sighs of annoyance, then thought of Nora's warm smile. "My granddaughter, Nora," she said firmly. "She remembers who I really am." Mr. Dalton nodded. A wise choice. When the final signature dried, Mary leaned back in her chair, breathing slowly. "Is everything active now?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "Your life is legally yours again." Mary whispered, "Then I can go home with peace." When she stepped outside, the winter sun warmed her cheeks, and Mary closed her eyes for a moment. "David, you'd be proud of me," she said quietly. Driving back, she imagined Anna pacing in the kitchen, waiting to blame her for something small. She imagined Mark complaining about bills he never paid. But for the first time, those images didn't hurt. She simply whispered, "They will learn to stand on their own." She parked the car, walked up the porch steps, and felt the wood creak familiar under her old shoes, as if welcoming her home differently this time. Inside, Anna rushed toward her. "Mom, where were you? We didn't know you left." Mary took off her coat calmly. "I had errands," she replied. Anna frowned. "You can't just disappear like that. You should tell us things." Mary looked at her with gentle firmness. "I do not need permission to live." Mark entered behind her, rubbing his forehead. "The Wi-Fi isn't working again. Did you touch something?" Mary turned slowly. "I touched something more important," she said. "But not the Wi-Fi." Neither of them understood. But they would soon. Later that afternoon, the locksmith arrived in a white van. Anna stood at the window, confused. "Mom, who is that?" Mary walked to the door. "Someone helping me secure my home." Mark followed quickly. "Secure from what?" Mary looked him straight in the eyes. "From people who treat it like theirs." The locksmith asked, "Which doors need rekeying?" Mary answered, "Every door." Anna's voice cracked. "Mom, why are you doing this?" Mary placed a key on the table and said softly, "These locks are for me now, not for anyone else." When the locksmith finished, Mary paid him and thanked him kindly. Anna stepped closer, voice trembling. "Does this mean we won't have keys?" Mary nodded. "That's correct." Mark's eyes widened. "This is ridiculous. We've lived here for years." Mary sat on the couch and folded her hands. "You lived here because I allowed it," she said calmly. "But that allowance has ended." Anna whispered, "Mom, what's going on?" Mary looked at her the way a mother looks at a child refusing to see the truth. "A message told me everything." Anna froze, her face draining of color. "Message?" she whispered. Mark looked sharply at her. "What message?" Mary spoke quietly, but every word landed like a stone in water. The one that said, "When will that old hag finally die?" Anna gasped. "Mom, I didn't mean," Mary lifted a hand. "Do not explain. I heard years of truth in one sentence." Mark sighed, pacing. "So this is all because of one mistake?" Mary replied softly, "No. It is because you two stopped loving and started using." 2 days later, the legal eviction documents arrived. Mary placed them on the kitchen table. "Your notice," she said. Anna opened the envelope with shaking hands. 30 days, she whispered. "We have only 30 days?" Mary nodded. "And that is generous." Mark stepped forward. "You can't evict your own daughter." Mary met his anger with calm clarity. "I can. And I have." Anna sat down heavily. "Where do we go?" Mary answered, "Somewhere you can build a life that isn't standing on my back." That evening, Mary walked into the main bedroom, the room she once shared with David. She touched the dresser he built, remembering the strength in his hands. "You would tell me to finish this with dignity," she whispered. She took a deep breath, then opened her closet and pulled out a suitcase. She placed a few dresses, sweaters, and the picture of her and David sitting on the porch steps. When Anna noticed the suitcase by the door, she gasped. "Mom, you're leaving?" Mary answered softly, "Yes. On my own terms." Anna reached for her arm in panic. "Mom, please don't go. We can change. We can fix this." Mary gently moved her hand away. Change should have come long before cruelty. Mark demanded, "Where will you even live?" Mary picked up her suitcase and smiled faintly. "A small cottage near the coast. Peace is waiting for me there." Anna's eyes filled with tears. "So this is the end." Mary opened the door and said, "No, child. This is the truth. And the truth always comes before the end." Then she stepped into the cold, clean air, lighter than she had felt in years. Mary stepped into the taxi, the cold air brushing her cheeks as she settled into the seat. The driver asked gently, "Heading far, ma'am?" She smiled softly. "Far enough." As the house disappeared behind her, she whispered, "Goodbye, David. I kept the promise to myself." Anna stood on the porch watching, not waving, just staring as if her world had shifted. Mark stood behind her, confused and silent. Mary leaned back and closed her eyes. For the first time in years, she wasn't running from anything. She was simply moving toward herself. The coastal cottage welcomed her like an old friend she had forgotten. A small porch, pale blue door, simple curtains swaying in the breeze. Inside, the rooms were quiet and warm, untouched by resentment or tension. Mary placed her suitcase on the floor and breathed deeply. "Peace," she whispered. "This must be what it feels like." She opened the window, letting the ocean air sweep through the room. It carried a softness she hadn't felt in years. She made tea, sat at the small wooden table, and let silence wrap around her like a comforting shawl. 2 days later, Nora knocked on the cottage door. Mary opened it with a smile. "Grandma," Nora said softly, stepping inside. "I brought groceries, and I needed to see you." Mary hugged her, feeling warmth she thought she had lost. Nora sat at the table and finally said, "Mom and Mark, they're not doing well. They didn't expect you to leave." Mary stirred her tea calmly. "They didn't expect me to act at all." Nora nodded. "They're scared. Everything feels heavy for them." Mary replied gently, "That weight is simply the truth catching up." Nora told her about the small rental Anna and Mark had found. "Mom keeps saying the walls are too thin, the room's too small," she explained. "She says nothing feels stable." Mary looked out the window at the calm waves. "She is learning what it means to stand without leaning on me." Nora asked quietly, "Do you miss her?" Mary took a long breath. "I miss who she was, but not who she became." Nora reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "I understand," she said. "I really do." That evening, as Mary sat on the porch, her phone rang. She didn't need to check the name. "Mom." Anna's voice trembled through the speaker. "We got the trust papers today." Mary answered gently, "I know." There was a long silence. "Mom, everything is different now. We're struggling." Mary replied softly, Struggle is where truth teaches us. Anna's breath hitched. Are you happy without us? Mary closed her eyes. I am peaceful, Anna. Peace is something I waited too long to claim. Anna whispered, I don't know how to fix this. I don't even know how to talk to you without messing up. Mary felt a small ache, not of hurt, but of recognition. Then talk honestly, she said. Talk without expecting me to carry everything. Another silence followed, quieter this time. I wish things hadn't turned out like this, Anna whispered. Mary replied, wishing is easy. Changing is hard. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Anna said, I'll call again soon. Mary answered, when you are ready, child. As days passed, Mary embraced her new rhythm. She planted rosemary on the windowsill, arranged her books by the fireplace, and placed a picture of David where sunlight touched it every morning. She walked slowly along the coastal path, letting the wind brush her hair back. The neighbors waved kindly. No one demanded anything from her. This is what life should feel like, she whispered during one quiet afternoon. Not small. Not heavy. Just mine. For the first time in many winters, Mary felt herself healing, not through others, but through stillness. Nora visited often, carrying bread, flowers, or simply stories from her classes. Grandma, you look lighter every time I come here, she said one day, smiling. Mary nodded. A home should make you breathe, not shrink. Nora hesitated, then added, Mom wants to visit, but she's afraid you'll turn her away. Mary set down her cup gently. If she comes with truth, my door is open. If she comes with excuses, the wind will greet her instead. Nora smiled sadly. I'll tell her that. Mary replied, tell her only what she needs, not what she expects. One afternoon, Nora joined her for a slow walk by the shore. Mom keeps saying she doesn't recognize herself anymore, Nora said softly. Mary nodded as the waves rolled in. Life humbles those who refuse to listen. Nora asked, do you think she'll change? Mary answered, people change when the pain of staying the same becomes heavier than the fear of trying. Nora looked at her thoughtfully. And if she changes? Mary touched her arm gently. Then we will build a new kind of relationship, one that doesn't erase me. That evening, Mary sat alone on the porch as the sky turned orange and lavender. The wind carried the distant sound of waves breaking softly. She folded her hands in her lap and whispered, David. I'm finally living, not waiting. She thought of Anna, not with anger, but with a calm understanding. Some endings were not punishments, they were beginnings for everyone involved. She closed her eyes as the cool air touched her face. Let the next chapter come, she murmured. I am ready for whatever truth brings. A week later, Mary was watering her small rosemary plant when she heard cautious footsteps on the porch. She didn't turn immediately. She already knew who it was. Mom. Anna called softly. Her voice held none of its old sharpness. Mary placed the watering can down and faced her. Anna stood at the door, hands shaking, eyes tired. May I come in? She asked quietly. Mary studied her face for a moment, then stepped aside. Only if you've come with honesty, she said. Anna nodded slowly. I have nothing left but that. Inside the cottage, Anna looked around with a soft sadness. It's peaceful here, she whispered. I never realized how loud I had become. Mary motioned for her to sit. Peace comes when noise stops pretending to be love. Anna swallowed hard. I thought I was helping you. I thought managing your life meant caring. Mary shook her head gently. You stopped seeing me as a person. Anna's eyes filled with tears. I know. And I don't have excuses. I hurt you. I made you feel small. Mary answered softly, Child, I made myself small too. The tears finally spilled as Anna buried her face in her hands. Mom. I don't know how to fix what I broke. Mary reached across the table, placing her hand gently over Anna's. Then stopped trying to fix the past. Build something new instead. Anna lifted her eyes, trembling. Do you still want me in your life? Mary breathed slowly. I don't want the daughter who mocked me. But if you choose to grow, then yes, I want the woman you are trying to become. Anna nodded, tears falling freely. I will try. They sat in silence for a moment, letting the truth settle between them without rushing it. Anna wiped her cheeks and whispered, "The message I sent. I hate that you saw it. I hate that I wrote it." Mary replied, "Seeing it didn't break me. It freed me." Anna took a shaky breath. "I treated you like a burden, and now I finally understand what you carried for years." Mary stood slowly and opened the window. "You cannot love someone you resent, Anna. And you resented me." Anna whispered, "I know, and I'm ashamed." After a long pause, Anna spoke again. "Mom, can we visit you sometimes? Not to control you. Not to take. Just to be with you." Mary looked at her gently. "You may visit when your heart is calm, not when your guilt is loud." Anna nodded, understanding the difference. "I don't expect your trust to return quickly." Mary smiled faintly. "Trust isn't a door. It's a garden. It grows only with steady hands." Anna whispered, "Then I will tend to it." Mary replied softly, "Then we will tend to it together." Before leaving, Anna paused by the door. "Mom, thank you for opening the door for me." Mary touched her shoulder lightly. "I didn't open it to the daughter you were. I opened it to the woman you're trying to be." Anna bowed her head in gratitude and stepped outside into the cool air. Mary watched her walk down the path with slow, thoughtful steps. No anger. No bitterness. Only quiet beginnings. She closed the door gently behind her, letting the cottage settle again. Truth had not broken them. It had simply rearranged them. Days passed peacefully. Mary tended her plants, read her books, and walked along the shore with her soft gray shawl wrapped around her shoulders. Nora visited often, bringing stories and laughter. One afternoon Nora asked, "Do you think Mom will really change?" Mary smiled at her. "Change doesn't happen in a day, child. But the first step is seeing yourself clearly. And she has done that." Nora nodded thoughtfully. "I see the difference already." Mary replied softly, "Then let the journey be hers. Not yours to carry." One crisp evening, as Mary watched the sunset paint the sky in gold and rose, her phone buzzed with a simple message from Anna. "I'm trying. Thank you for not closing the door on me." Mary smiled gently. She typed back slowly, "Trying is the seed. Keep watering it." She set the phone aside and listened to the soft hush of the waves. She felt neither sadness nor regret. Only a warm fullness in her chest, the feeling of a story finally settling into its proper ending. She whispered, "David, I did what was right." As spring approached, the cottage garden bloomed under Mary's steady care. Rosemary, mint, small wildflowers, each one thriving in quiet soil. One morning, Nora arrived with a sketchpad filled with drawings. "Grandma, I'm designing my own small art studio someday," she said proudly. Mary smiled warmly. "Build it with your heart, not with fear." Nora hugged her tightly. "You taught me that," she whispered. Mary squeezed her hand. "I only reminded you of what you already had inside." The world around them felt gentle, safe, and full of new beginnings. That evening, Mary stood on the porch, watching the first stars blink awake over the water. She wrapped her shawl around her shoulders and breathed deeply, feeling 80 years settle into a peaceful balance. She had walked away from a house that lost its kindness and stepped into a life that finally honored who she was. Not a burden. Not a shadow. A woman with dignity, wisdom, and quiet strength. As the breeze brushed her face, she whispered, "My life is mine again." And in the soft twilight, with peace settling like warm light around her, Mary smiled, knowing she had reclaimed her story.